And now, the survival show that once survived finding out how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. True story. In this episode, Garry Collins is back with more off-grid shenanigans, misadventures, and advice. You'll get all the ins and outs for when you're ready to build that perfect bug-out location. Howdy, and welcome to the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 206. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Garry, welcome back to In the Rabbit Hole, dude.
Thanks for having me back, Aaron.
Man, so you've had some new stuff going on. You got your new book coming out, and this is such a big topic. We wanted to have you on again to talk about it more. And I think one of the things that really what I was thinking about when I was thinking about your project, and I think when I was thinking about my own daydreams of going out into the sticks and going off grid, I'm always curious why. What was your motivation to do this? Like, what is the advantage to you?
Well, as some people know, I grew up in a pretty isolated area, even though I grew up in California. I grew up in a small town in the mountains. And that was kind of my upbringing. So I really didn't have a ton of exposure to city living, besides going to my grandparents in LA, which was, fun, but as a kid, I liked being in the sticks, more until, I graduated, went to college. That's when, I went to a college with 40,000 kids, and I grew up in a town of 2,000 people. So it was quite overwhelming. But, for me, it was more just kind of burned out on city living. It had been a dream of mine to do it for quite a while. It wasn't one of those things where, I watched a show or read a book. It was more, it was always in the back of my mind that, eventually I want to have a place in a remote area again and live it that way. But, you're working and doing the grind, and, you really plan for it or do it. But a couple life events happened, and I just said, enough's enough. I'm going to at least go look for land, and started probably, now it's been 10 years ago. Is when I first started.
Oh, wow. I didn't know I didn't know this process had been that long for you.
That's when the initial process started, when I just started looking at land. And I didn't know where I wanted to go. I was just kind of randomly looking throughout the U.S., trying to think of, and people go, well, why don't you just go where you grew up? Well, I grew up in California. I was pretty sick of California, too. So even though it's a small town, the California rules still apply. The stupidity still is there. So I was looking for something, kind of that fit my mindset now. And I ended up in Spokane, Washington, working a case in the government. And I kind of fell in love with the area. And so that's when I started exploring that area more. And it was right around 2006, 2007. And then I just did my research, looked around, and spent more and more time up there, and decided, you know what, I'm going to look here. But the problem was land was still pretty expensive. It was still during the boom, kind of the tail end of it. So property was completely overinflated. So, and I'd owned land before. I still do own land in New Mexico. So I wasn't a rookie at it. Real estate was kind of my side business that I did on the side. I'd been doing real estate for, I want to say I started probably first rental property 15 years ago. So I was kind of slowly evolving into this process. And so I spent time looking around. It didn't work out, took a break. And like I said, some life event happens, and a couple severe surgeries. A really good friend was killed in a training accident.
Oh, man.
Who we had talked about, doing this, good friends that we met as teenagers. And he was looking at the same time when he was killed. And I went, you know what? I got to put this plan into play, because otherwise I'll keep telling myself tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll do it next year. I said, screw it. Took 2 weeks off and headed up into a small town in Northeast Washington got a rental car, and just basically combed the entire quadrant of the state, Northeast quadrant, and said, okay, let me figure this out now. Let me just figure out where. And it worked well because I got to see a lot of things that I hadn't seen before. And I did. I narrowed down the area. I had a kind of a turd for a real estate agent out of Spokane. Had to fire him. Ended up getting someone in a small town, the small town I was staying in. And he just, luckily, he goes, hey, I think I know exactly what you're looking for. And I went, oh, really? And he did. He found it. We walked up to the property. It was 20 acres, all old logging roads in. And I went, this is it. And it was very affordable. I paid a little over $1,000 an acre.
Mm.
So it all kind of fell together. And that is the short version of it. But I mean, obviously, over 10 years, there's a whole lot of looking, searching, and, days on the internet of looking at properties and land. And, I went all over the board. I went from, looking for a place that already had a cabin on it or already had a house to raw land. And it was trying to balance them all out. And eventually I just settled on raw land because I felt that gave me a template or a blank slate that I could do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And but with that, it is a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask. Like, at the time, did you not think about did you underestimate the amount of work it was going to take? Like, in hindsight, do you think, wow, I really wish I would have bought something that already had a structure on it? Does that enter into it?
Oh, yeah. There was times, when I go, why didn't I just buy one with the house done?
Yeah.
But when it's one of those, this was kind of my life dream too. I think I would have regretted it if I would have done it that way. Because in the end, this will be basically my life dream home in a way, even though it's not a 4,000 foot, cabin, mansion or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I want. And for me to build or buy something that someone had already built, it's kind of their dream, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's hard to find. People who have done this know when you go looking more remote, it's very difficult to find something built that you like. And if you do find it, it tends to be very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm. I know I've done that when I've looked at about once a year, I'll go a couple of weeks just looking at rural land in Texas. And every time I flip on something or flip the switch to say, yeah, just show me stuff that has a house on it, I never find anything that I like, and stuff that I'm like, well, that's okay. It's really expensive.
Yeah. And that's what I think most people will find is you'll find two things. You'll find a more remote piece of property that has basically a beat up shed that they call a house on it that literally is not, you can't even finance because it's not up to code. It won't pass an inspection. Mm-hmm. Or you end up with a really, really nice house that is really expensive. Mm-hmm. So, it's hard to find that in between. And I looked, and I'm sure you have too. I've literally spent years looking. So I think I've looked at a little bit of everything. But for me too, one of my dream kind of evolved into an off the grid type of project as well. It didn't start there, but it ended up there.
So how did that happen?
I'll be honest, I'll give California credit for that. Living in California, and anyone who's been here dealing with the ridiculous water prices, the ridiculous electrical bills and gas bills. I mean, it is astronomical. I mean, I have friends whose water, electric, and gas bills are $600, $700, $800 a month.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. It is crazy here.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, and if you run your air conditioner, and say you have a big house, your electric bill is your bills will be $1,000. If you live in an area where it's hot, during the summer, you just get killed. Mm-hmm. And this state just rapes you any which way it can. And for me, it kind of pushed me to go, you know what? I think I'm done with that. Let me take a stab at running my own power. Let me take a stab at doing all this. And I had never done it before. When I grew up, I did live, we were living off well. And, but we had public utility. We still had, we had septic too, our own septic system, but we still lived off, public utility as far as power. And we had propane tanks. So power was only one we had for the most part. So I lived pretty close. If we would have thrown some solar panels up, we would have been there. Because we didn't have cable TV, we didn't have any of that. We ran, we either used a antenna, if anyone remembers those days, or we eventually bought a satellite dish and we built it. My stepdad and his friend built it out of wood. I kid you not. Yeah, a satellite. It was one of the first ones back in the day that came in a kit. So I lived pretty close to that lifestyle. It was fun. It wasn't that bad. So that kind of pushed my envelope. Not only that, but the land I ended up buying, I looked into just what it would cost to have utilities ran. It was $80,000.
Holy shit.
Oh yeah. And I think I'd had to get permission from 3 other landowners because it would have had to have been all above ground.
Oh yeah. We talked about that before. Yeah.
So I went, screw that. That's not even an option. So yeah, I decided to do all my research, figure it out, and build this place. It's been difficult. I ain't gonna lie. It's been a learning experience. It's not the first house I've built. I've had 2 others built besides this, but more track home stuff.
So I assume that was an easier project than this.
Well, yeah. Anyone who's built a house, it is never easy.
No, it's never easy. But I would just imagine, so one, you're on a logging road. So I would imagine if there's any kind of inclement weather, that right there causes issues getting things up to the property.
Well, as people have watched some of these TV shows for the Alaska stuff, I've hand carried all the building products. No one can deliver building materials to my proproperty.
Holy shit! Dude.
So
good thing you like to work out.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. After last summer, I was so beat up that I needed a really good break to get away from it. And not only that, but people who have done this understand that it's at least a 3 to 5 year project. You can't just decide to go buy a remote piece of land and build an off the grid house unless you have a large sum of money. And even then you have to schedule contractors around, certain schedules. You're more remote, so it takes them more time to get out there. So it reduces building time. There's a whole host of issues that go along with it.
So I guess, was the road what kept you from doing any of the prefabricated structure kind of route?
Yes. Okay. That is exactly what did that in. Okay. I would have to helicopter stuff in.
Okay. Because there are some really amazing prefab homes now that are modern and very well insulated and all that. So when I've thought of doing it, that's the route I've thought of going. And so I was just curious why you didn't do that. And I guess having to hand carry all the building materials.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you, that's what I would recommend is if you can get the prefabbed. Actually, a friend of mine I grew up with, I didn't even know, she grew up up the street from me in my little small town in the sticks. She lives in the town next to me now, and we just figured this out a couple months ago. So she's one town over from me where my off-the-grid house is. And she did that. She bought a prefabbed cabin, and they bring it in. And she did that, and I went, oh, God, that's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't. We couldn't get the materials up that easily. We could have done it, but it would have been just a nightmare. I couldn't even imagine. Because I have a really severe switchback in my road of my property.
Okay, that was going to be one of my other questions because I was like, I can't imagine the road's that muddy and terrible that you couldn't drive stuff up.
Well, and that switchback, that's why I can't get my travel trailer up there. That's why there's a whole host of things why I have to do things the way I'm doing. The upside is, I'm at the top of the hill. I'm the only person at the top of the hill. So... yeah, it's you got to figure out, and I've talked about this before, you have to decide what you want. Off the grid is just a term. There's a multifaceted off the grid concept. You can go in many different directions.
Such as
you could be more in prairie land. So you can be on a flat piece of land where it's easy to get stuff in and out. You can be less remote. You can be kind of tied to public utilities, but not use them. People do that as well. They have them there, but they're not using them. They're still living off the grid, even though technically people want to say that's not off the grid. But I know people who ran the utilities, they just never hooked them up.
Yeah, because I know in a lot of areas that's like a thing. Like you cannot get an occupancy permit
Yep.
without having that tie to the grid, which is just bizarre to me, but whatever.
Well, you can't get a bank loan either, or a construction loan.
Mm.
So that's another process that people learn, and a lot of us talked about, because I know a lot of people now who live off the grid as well, is you have to self-finance this in chunks. So you build for a while as much as you can, you stop, you save your money back up, you build again. And that's why it takes also 3 to 5 years. Even if you had the money, I don't think it would go really quick anyway, depending on what type of property you had. But the upside is, in the end, you own the property outright. You don't have a loan, and you built it on your terms, your way. But with that comes pain. It's a painful experience. But in the end, I won't regret it one bit. I mean, and I wrote the book and I got it out, and I'm not even finished. And people ask me, they go, "Well, you're not even done." I went, "Yeah, but the off the grid stuff is done. I went, the stuff
Okay.
that's in the book is all finished." And I spend a lot of my time at the property already. I mean, I'm already there every single day.
Mm.
So, and I wanted to get it out too, because people kept hounding me. Go, "God, I heard you right. I want to buy your book." And I'm all, "Okay, let me just get it finished.
Yeah.
And if I need to, I can always write either, a supplemental to it, or I can just write another book. But I really don't need to. Everything that's in that book, I've already done."
When you say that it's off grid, is this the septic systems and electrical
Everything,
systems, water?
everything. Yeah, that's what I mean. The well's been in for 2.5, 3 years. The well's the first thing of 3 years. I put the well in first. So, I mean, all my pressure tanks hooked up, my pumps hooked up. I have water on the property. The solar's been all put in. It's approved by the city. It's all been signed off on. The structure's all up. All the windows are in. All the appliances are in. Everything's there.
Mm.
It's all there. I just need to finish it.
How on earth did you get a well drilled up there with that switchback and everything else? Like I don't know, what was the whole process like? Like I've always been. And now for a quick break. Listeners, do you get at least $3 a month worth of value out of ITRH? We'd love to give you more. Visit itrh.net to find out about membership benefits. For starters, members get access to every episode ever produced and a monthly virtual conference. That's just for starters. And it's important to note, In the Rabbit Hole is supported nearly entirely by Roving Horde Armada members just like you. That's how we pay the bills, stay on the air, keep the lights on around here. So go to itrh.net to learn how you can become part of the ITRH Roving Horde Armada. Next up, subscribe to the show through your favorite podcast app to make sure you never miss an episode by going to intherabbithole.com/iTunes or intherabbithole.com/Stitcher or intherabbithole.com/iHeartRadio or intherabbithole.com/Google Play. Or if you are one of those weirdos who listen to the show through YouTube, you can go to intherabbithole.com/YouTube because you know what? We support weirdos. However weird you want to be, we're all about that. Now, back to the show. How on earth did you get a well drilled up there with that switchback and everything else? Like I don't know, what was the whole process like? Like I've always been curious about wells. I've just never really gotten into it. Like I have a well here, but it's grandfathered into the house, and it's kind of weird to have a well here and me being in the middle of the city. But mine is, I'm in an older home and it's grandfathered in. But what was that process like of trying to drill a well up there?
And that was the first thing I did, because I knew growing up with wells, I grew up with wells pretty much my entire life, that if you didn't have water, you're screwed. So yeah, I got a great deal on the land, and I knew surrounding properties had wells, but the closest one was 1.5 miles away. So I was like, okay, so I called the 3 drilling companies, got my quotes, talked to the biggest one, had them come up, and we looked around and said, okay, there should be water here. It's just, how deep is it? And then we looked at the roads and kind of went, well, how do we get the drilling rig up here? And luckily, they were nice about it. We said, I go, hey, let's try and get it up here. Let's see if it'll make it. And I dug out the road. I had some road work done before they got up there to make it a little easier. And where that switchback is, you can actually go veer right, and there's a turnaround, but it's a tight turnaround. You can't get very much in there. Like I couldn't get a travel trailer in there and back at it and get it turned around. But a drilling rig barely made it. We were barely able to maneuver at about 15-point turn to get it headed back up the hill. But it got stuck. He got stuck on the last corner. We get all the way up the hard stuff, and he gets stuck on the last corner.
That sucks.
It sucked. So I called up. I had a backup plan of a guy with a bulldozer, and we were going to tow it, which I got okayed by the company. And trust me, not every drilling company is going to let you drag their multi-$100,000 or some multi-million-dollar rig up a hill with a bulldozer. And they said, no problem. So we did. It's on YouTube. I have the video of us dragging that thing up the hill. And it was scary because if I didn't get that thing up the hill, that project was done. There was no off the grid for Garry. Because if I can't get the well in, I'm just camping. You know, I don't want to haul water up there all the time. And I'm in the northeast part of Washington where we don't get that much rain.
That was going to be my next question, is why, did you do anything with rainwater, and what was that like? But
I probably could make it work and supplement with hauling water. But, for me, I don't want to go through that. I'm getting older in life, and that's kind of the last thing I want to deal with. My attitude was, I want to have off the grid, but I want it to be convenient to some extent and be close to normal living, per se. And people go, well, that ain't off the grid. Well, no, it's my perception of how I want to live off the grid.
Right.
Other people are totally fine. And I talk about this in the book. Other people are totally fine with building something by hand, going out and getting, finding, old homes to grab their construction materials off, reclaim it, and do all that stuff. That just wasn't for me. Now, I'm not discouraging anyone from doing that. But, that's what I'm saying. This is your own dream. You have to figure out how you want to do it. And for me, I just wanted the convenience factors. And not only that, but I run a business. So I have to have certain things. I have to have certain creature comforts, or otherwise it's going to be a very difficult existence. So yeah, the well was the toughest part. But yeah, I drilled that first. I made sure we got that done first before I ever spent a dime on anything else.
How do they even figure out where water is? Like, I am a complete idiot when it comes to anything to do with wells.
It's one of those where, actually, I'll be honest with you, I had a guy witch it.
Did you really?
I did. I had a guy come up, witch it first, and he found a spot. And I said, okay, then the drilling company came up, and they picked almost the exact same spot.
Wow.
The thing is, you got to remember, these drilling companies that do these wells, they've been doing this for a living for decades, most of them. They know where the water is. If it's there, they're really good at knowing where it is. And sure enough, we found water, no problem. It was 510 feet deep, but we found it.
Damn.
But remember, I'm at the top of a hill.
Right.
I'm at the very top. Of course it's going to be deep. And so we actually guessed that it would be quite right around there in our mind, because we're all, well, how elevated am I from, the water, where am I at? And we all kind of said, well, I bet you it's going to be about 400 or 500 feet. Sure enough, but that was more expensive than the land.
Wow.
My well cost me more money than what I paid for the land to put the pump in and get the well and the casing, get it tested. But wells are even more expensive now, because now they become popular again. So I got mine in at the right time. And my friend who had her house built on grid, obviously you still have to get a well out in the sticks, even on grid, usually. I think her well was pretty close to the cost of mine. So it's just the way it is. And that's why I always tell people, before you go into this, have a plan. And I talk about that in the book. Just don't wing it. Don't watch those TV shows where they show people, some 22-year-olds who'd got their first job and they buy land in the middle of nowhere and they put up a yurt or something and they're living. I've seen those shows, and those are complete BS. I'm telling you, those people are not living there all year long in a yurt.
Well, and I think there's a big difference between being 20 and doing something like that and being 40 or even 50 and doing something. Like your tolerance level of pain and aggravation and bullshit is a lot higher at 20. I finally figured out, like, that's why somehow hangovers are okay when you're 20, and when you're 40, you're just like, I'm not going to have that last drink because I do not want a hangover tomorrow.
Well, yeah, you get older, I'm getting closer to 50 now, and it's coming, it's letting me know. And you're right. And that's why I said the tolerance I have for the living conditions I'll deal with are far different now. And this is also a home that I plan to spend a lot of time in. So I want it to be comfortable. I do. And with that, you have to plan it. You have to take a step back at times. You have to rethink things. Last summer I had to fix a bunch of stuff from a crappy contractor that I just had to redo a lot of work. So I had to take a step back. It set me a year behind, but I fixed it. If I wouldn't have fixed it, it would have been a very bad decision on my part. If I would have just rushed it and said, screw it, just go forward and let's just do it anyway.
So what got screwed up?
Oh God, everything. The guy just didn't know what he was doing. It's the typical, he talked that he had done, a lot of work with this Fazwall product. And I found out the only project he had done after the fact was the one right before mine. And he had screwed that one up. So the way he laid that brick, he did it wrong. He put the windows in wrong. He put the doors in wrong, and just did a lot of stupid stuff, sealed the crawl space wrong. So I had to dig everything up, and I had to come up with a really expensive fix for the windows and doors, because the only alternative was I was going to have to pull them all out. And some of my parts of my house are 20 feet plus off the ground. So I would have to get a lift up there, and getting a lift up there is a whole nother adventure. He got his up and he bitched and whined about it the whole time. So, I was like, well, I just got to sit here and think about how to fix this the way it is. And I did. And then he put all the electrical conduit in wrong, and all that's inside the brick.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So you're like stuck, didn't put in the radon tube that I told him to do. So that had to be retrofitted after the fact. And so I said, screw it. And we ended up 2x4 framing the entire inside of the house, and just basically built stick frame inside. So I could run all the new electrical and run it right and all the plumbing. I just didn't have anywhere to put anything. And that happens. I've been dealing with contractors for 20 years. The guy did a good job of bullshitting me. And I was busy, and he took advantage of it. I was running around with my head chopped off trying to run my business and get stuff done. And that's what happens. And I have a whole section in the book on dealing with contractors, because that's going to be one of the most difficult parts if you choose to use them, of dealing with this off the grid process, because there's very far and few between who will do it, and have the skills.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, with contractors, there's really only two kinds. There's ones who are flaming morons, and then there's a small group of contractors who are excellent human beings who do amazing work, and they're great guys. But unfortunately, I think more often than not, I mean, this isn't all, obviously, anybody that's going to get their knickers in a twist here. I mean, it's like a lot of things in life. There's car salesmen that are, complete shitheads, and then there's other ones that are really great guys. And so, yeah, I think that's tricky. So how do you, I mean, how did you end up resolving to kind of sift through, separate the wheat from the chaff of finding good help? Or were you ever able to find good contractors?
It was very difficult. Actually, I've gone through quite a few contractors. The original one I had, I fired. Then I got this guy, and I fired him. And then I got some other guys. I actually found it through an electrician who I found by accident. They were working on the RV park, the electrical box there. Two guys who were employees of his. And I asked them if they'd ever done any solar stuff. And they go, oh, our boss has. And that kind of started it. And he does the electrical. And then he has brothers who do other work that are in the trades. And then his brother-in-law is also in the trade as well. So I use basically a whole family now.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But it was, and they're great guys, just the nicest guys in the world. And it's just hard to to give you a real easy way, but the best way is, ask around,
Hmm.
see their work if you can. But again, a lot of these guys are sociopaths,
Yeah.
so they're going to tell you anything to get the job.
Yeah.
And as soon as they get your money, they're going to either screw it up or out. And as far as bad things can go with construction, mine was people think is bad. It's not that bad. Trust me. I was able to salvage the house.
Mm.
A lot of places you have to basically either knock the house down, or it takes a whole ton of retro work to fix what they did, which could be triple what you were going to pay to begin with.
Yeah, I heard some real horror stories when I was still in architecture. And yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah.
It's an ugly, ugly business. And that's why I know a lot of people living more homesteading and stuff do it themselves. And I agree with that. If you could do it yourself, do it yourself. But building a house all on your own is quite a task and dangerous.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it
Hell,
could
heck,
save-
I've got a window that needs to be trimmed out. And even I'm like, I don't have time to do that.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
still trying to find somebody to do that.
yeah, you got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and for me, I've been pretty hands-on. I mean, throughout the whole project. But, I hired this guy so I wouldn't have to be. And it ends up the opposite. I end up being more hands-on because I got to turn around. I can't afford to pay someone to fix his work now.
Hmm.
And it cost me quite a bit to fix it. But it got fixed and it's done. And it was a good lesson because I think overall for people to see that, they go, oh, okay. I hate to have me be the guinea pig, but
But the rest of
more,
us are glad you're the guinea pig.
well, yeah, but more often than not, in construction, there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
And I've never had a house built or a project where there weren't problems. It's just the way it is.
Hmm.
And being able to recognize them now, see what I went through and go, oh, okay. And my attitude is be quick to fire. If you feel like something isn't right, fire them. Get them out of there for the love of God before they do too much damage. Because they are. A lot of these guys are manipulators. And they're just there to take your money. They could give two shits about your project.
Hmm.
And, but the good ones, it's tough too, because the good ones are hard to get. They're busy.
Yeah.
So you got to fit them into your schedule and into their schedule. And even off the grid is even worse because, again, it's a specialty project.
So what about it was so special? Like where did the problems come in?
Like for me, I'm using a different material. So I'm using an ICF brick, which is an insulated concrete form is what they call it.
Okay.
So it's got higher insulation value. It's a hollow brick that's 85% sawdust, 15% concrete. And it's made, they don't make them in large volumes. You got to order them. They got to manufacture it for you. Then they ship it to you. Mine were made out of Oregon. So I'd never worked with this product. I'd never even seen it before. But the contractor, general contractor I had recommended it. Again, said he'd worked with it a bunch. He was an expert. I don't default the product. The product's a good product. It was the installation that was the problem. But, with that, I'm watching this stuff go up and I'm going, uh-oh, I'm stuck. I couldn't finish this off. I don't have the equipment to do this.
Like, how is the installation different from just regular brick and masonry
Yeah, like
work?
cinder block. It's shaped like cinder block, but it's way different in the sense that it's a jointless. They call it a jointless building material. So what that means is you're not using concrete to make joints and put it together, and the bricks are imperfect, which means they're not all the same size. They're not exact. So there's not a smooth wall. It's a little bit off and rough. And the way you actually bind them together in the initial process before you fill them with rebar and concrete is you use spray foam. So you spray foam around these bricks and you basically bind them together as you stack them. They're an interconnecting brick.
So is it interconnected like through a shape, like they fit together, or is it you're like gluing them together with this foam?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
They fit together and you're gluing them together.
Uh-huh.
And the foam is to seal, not only to glue it, but to seal it as well. And then when you're done in stages, we did it in 2 stages. You fill it, you're running rebar through it as you go per the instructions, which I guess he didn't bother to follow half the time. And then you fill it with concrete. So that gives you, all of your structural integrity and strength. So it's quite a different product.
Yeah. It sounds pretty
brick.
strong, though. I mean, it's basically reinforced concrete inside these bricks.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it is a cool product.
Mm-hmm.
But by getting myself into that, well, now I got stuck.
Right.
And now I'm like, okay, so I had to, maneuver just to get it dried in, to get it up. And the guy just a piece of work of a human being. But
so what was so special about these things? Was it the insulation value? Was it
insulation value? Because the outside, so inside the brick, the outside portion has a 3-inch piece of foam in each brick.
Okay.
So it's got, I want to say when it's done correctly, if I remember my numbers, I want to say it was R40.
Okay.
If done correctly. Mm-hmm. And now that I've framed the inside, I have R60 in the roof. I over insulated everything. So when I left this year, I covered all my windows the last week I was there, and the temperature was constant all day long. And so, and you can't hear anything either. It's noise deadening to where it's just pure quiet. So it's got, and it's fireproof. And that was one of the key things too, is I wanted my place to be fireproof. Because I'm in the middle of the woods and
on top of a mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. The fire department's going to watch it probably burn.
Yeah. Get the marshmallows.
Hopefully the insurance company's not listening to this right now. But yeah, so I wanted to make sure the whole house was fireproof. So that was a whole nother issue. So, if you build a log cabin, well, yeah, it's great. They're beautiful, but they burn down. That's part of the deal of a log cabin. So you have to think everything through. And that's what I'm saying. It's a different project for every person. And you'll hear this from off the grid people, because I always get asked, they say they get asked is people go, well, give me the template. Like, what do I do? And you go, there is none. There is no template for this. You have to figure it out on your own per se. I give you, like, my book runs you through different types. I start with how to simplify your life. You've got to make the jump from where you're living now to where you want to go. And that's a process that doesn't happen overnight, to figuring out where you want to live, to figuring out the land, then going, what type of construction do you want to use? It's this whole process, but I can only give you like this loose process. You have to fill in the pieces from there.
So what is it that makes it a loose process? Why is it not something that would take to a template, so to speak?
Well, it just like your solar system, your alternative energy system.
Okay.
Maybe you have enough money, you can put in geothermal. Geothermal is highly efficient, but it's very expensive. It is the most efficient system there is, but very expensive. And depends on your topography. How far down can you dig? Are you on granite? Are you on loose dirt? There's so many issues with that. Solar, how big is your footprint? How big is your house? That determines how much solar. Do you have wind? Are you like me? I'm up in an area. I'm going to put a turbine in eventually, as soon as I can, actually. Well, I can because I have consistent wind. If you're down below and low and you don't have consistent wind, a turbine won't work. Are you near a stream? Can you use hydro and that's actually the most consistent. If you have a consistent water source that runs all year long, hydro is by far the best. But you can't usually run a house off just one. Usually you're using one or two of them at multiple, unless you have a big solar array and you have enough sun. Do you live in a place that has enough sun? Okay, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of variables.
Ton of variables, and like even septic. I have a gravity-fed septic system, which is the traditional septic system that people have used forever, living remotely, or just, not living in a city or metropolitan kind of area. Heck, they've even have them in the suburbs. They used to. I have a gravity-fed. Well, you may need a pressure system because you don't have enough slope to run a gravity system, which means a pressure system has to pump everything out and up slight hills. It just goes all over the board. Do you have enough rain? Can you use water catchment instead of having a well? Do you want to do both because you have a shallow well that doesn't pump enough water, but you have enough rain to do, that's what I mean. It's this whole process that you got to really look at And what dictates that is your land. And another thing that dictates it, your financial resources.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean. I tried to be as all encompassing in the book as I possibly could. But I explained, this is your journey, not mine. You're building this for you, not me. But I go through the different construction, stick construction, hay bale construction, the ICF that I used, the log cabin. I talk about, the ups and downs of all of them. All of them have their strengths and weaknesses. And again, talking about septic, talking about well, talking about composting toilets and that whole rigor. I went through that whole thing. Codes. You go, hey, I'll just stick a composting toilet in there. Well, that's not code. You can't do that. If you want your house to code, that's not part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So usually it depends where you live. If you live remotely and it's considered more of a seasonal cabin, you can have an outhouse in some areas, and that's totally fine. I mean, it's. I know I'm making it sound really complicated, and people are going, "I'm never doing this ever." Garry just scared me to death. But it's just things you have to think about, and that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. So what things in the process, if you had to do them all over again, it sounds like you would stay with that brick you used. I mean, I could be making a wild ass assumption there. But what would you do differently? Like, what mistakes did you make? Like, what were the big mistakes that you made that you wish you could do over?
I think the product was the right product in the end.
Just the wrong installation.
Wrong installation.
I mean, installer, yeah.
If the guy would have done it right, it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was just part of the process. I mean, stuff happens. I don't know if I would change much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those, if you're going to do a project like this too, you got to be able to roll with the punches. There's going to be a snafu at some point. Something's going to go horribly wrong.
Always is. Yeah, all construction projects.
And you just have to sit there and go, this can be fixed. How do we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I can't have that 800 square foot kitchen I want.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to kind of figure what is practical and what is things that you're willing to sacrifice, for what you want to do. For me, I wanted to have as close to a normal functioning house as I could. But most places, when you're off the grid, you're not going to have central heat and cooling. You're just not. You don't have the power for that. And it's one of those that's probably the first thing you're going to have to give up. Okay, if you're going to have to give that up, how do you make up for that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're going to do it by insulating make sure your dwelling is insulated properly. Maybe you want to face it in a different direction so the sun in the summer is not just beating down on you, cooking you like an egg. Maybe you're going to build into a berm like the guy people do in Arizona. There's so many things. So I don't know if I would change much. I think I did as good as I could do with the financial resources and the property, the way it was set up, that I could do. That's why I tell people, take it slow. Don't just jump in and just go balls out on it, because it's going to get you in a lot of trouble.
So I would assume you're in an incorporated area if you were having to deal with building permits. Is that?
Kinda. I'm kind of in a middle ground.
Okay.
Because some people see the property and they think I am just way out there, and I'm not. I'm pretty close to the highway. I'm not too far away. It's miles away, but it's not like 10 miles away. 10 miles or about 11 miles from the closest town. So yeah, the building codes are a smart thing to do. The only time I would not recommend, or I shouldn't even say recommend, if you decided you just didn't want to deal with the city and deal with any of that, if you've got like 100, 200 acres that's been family land for hundreds of years and you just want to build something and it's going to be there forever, well, maybe you don't want to do it and get a building permit and do it all to code. Probably get you in trouble down the road. They're pretty sticklers on some of that stuff. But for the most part, the reason I tell people this is a smart move is, I've said this many times, there's Google Earth now. They know everything you're doing. You can't hide anything anymore. I went to my little town to get some pictures of my plot and figure out where my property lines were. Well, they had, in my little tiny town, they had high res color Google Earth photos.
Hmm.
They knew exactly what my land looked like. And, the county assessor has been to my property 3 times already.
Hmm.
And going around my gates, not calling me, not letting me know, just showing up.
That'd be dangerous in Texas.
Well, and I warned them. I actually called them one time because my cameras caught them, and I was about ready to call the sheriff's department. I wasn't there.
Uh-huh.
And I caught the orange Dayglow vest and clipboard. I went, that's got to be someone from the county.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I called the county office and said, hey, is anyone doing assessing or anything today? And they go, oh, yeah, they're at your property today. I go, you might want to give me a warning next time. Because I went, they hiked around quite a few fences, and I just don't think that's a wise idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, well, yeah, we want our money.
And that raises a really good question that you just touched on. What did you do about security? Because you're not there all the time. And that's always been one of my big concerns about a remote property.
And that is everyone's. And once I kind of talked about it, and it's in the book, I have a whole chapter on security. And people who may not know who I am, I come from a law enforcement, military intelligence background. So I'm not a dummy in security. I've worked it for a large part of my life. And it's very important that you get it set up as soon as you can, because I don't care where you live, more remote you live, people still know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just waiting for you to leave and go up there and see what you got going on. And if you're stupid enough to leave out that new, $200 chain or $400 chainsaw, if you got a good one, and they're just looking. So you got to be careful. And I set up the first thing that happened to me, and I put this in a video too, and like I said, I explain it in the book, is I got something stolen right away. I didn't even have anything up there. It wasn't mine. They stole stuff off the drilling rig overnight. Kid you not. They stole the tire chains and the tie-down straps. Why?
What?
I don't know if it was just...
People will steal the stupidest shit.
And those tire chains were heavy. Heavy. So I don't know if they were just trying to rattle me, or if they were, as tweakers just looking for any kind of, anything they could go get to, the recycle center or whatever. I don't know.
Mm.
But that happened literally the night we got it up there.
So what did you do to lock things down up there, or at least keep an eye on things?
Well, instantly I built a shed.
Mm.
I put a shed up was the first thing, so we could store everything and have all the tools secured. And then I put in perimeter fences with gates to make sure no one could just roll in. Mm-hmm. So I double gated everything too. So I have 2 entries, one on the back side of the property and one on the front side of the property. Even though they're my roads, technically, they're still roads. People can come right up.
Mm.
So what I did is I double gated. So I have one gate a little further up, and then I have a second gate a little further down, to where you got to go through 2 points for each one. So make their life a little bit miserable if they think they're going to do something like that. And they're going to have a hard time hauling stuff out of there. More than likely they'll break their ankle trying to get something out of there before, because it's just, they're not getting a car up there.
Mm.
So I put those up, put barbed wire up, put all my signs up, let people know, hey, I'm sure you've been riding your ATV up here for the last 20 years. Enough of that. Yeah, I own it. Stop being an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
I've caught kids on my property. I've walked right up on them, not thinking I was there, and scared the living shit out of them because I'm always armed on my property.
Mm.
And I look pretty rough. I'm usually pretty dirty and tired and sweaty from working. So yeah, they got a nice little surprise. But I also put up security cameras too that go directly to my phone. So I know anytime anything's going on.
So how did you deal with that? Do they run off a cellular signal, or are they like beaming back to your house that has satellite internet and then that's shooting at you? How does that work?
Here's the tricky part too, is I researched this up and down, and I'm hoping they come up with a solution, is that when you're in a remote property, I have to use, obviously I don't have internet. So I have Wi-Fi that I use through Verizon that works, because I have a tower on a mountain about 10 miles away that I have a direct line of sight to. So I have full bars up there, thankfully. That's another thing you need to think about, communications. Mm-hmm. I talk about that, another chapter in the book, or part of it, maybe in the security section. And that's, I try and cover a wide gamut of the whole process for people. So I really hope people enjoy this book because I busted my butt, people. Buy a lot of them. There's no system that you can really work off that because you can't let your Wi-Fi run all the time because it times out too. So you can't have consistent internet. So what I did is I used these high-end HD game cameras that ran off cellular.
Okay.
So they're Bushnell. Bushnell was the only, I think someone else might be making them now, but when I bought these, Bushnell was the only one. And they run off cellular tower, so they communicate to you, and they have an app that you put on your phone so you can get the photos and everything downloaded, and you can set them up however you want. And that's what I use. And I set them around, and I have some other stuff set up that I don't tell people about, but that's what I use. And it's worked beautifully. No, the only people who have gone up there have been the county and my contractors. I mean, people who are working for me, I know when they show up, I know when they leave, and they know. I let them know. They see the cameras. They know they're there. And so it helps keep people more on the honest side too.
Right.
And, can you make a perfect security system anywhere you live? No. If someone wants to steal your shit, they're going to steal your shit. But if you got a good high res photo of them and you're in a small area, there's a pretty good chance someone's going to know who they are. So, and plus people know too that I made it very clear after those idiots stole that stuff. I said, hey, I'm not your guy. I'm not that guy. And you get caught up here, trust me, it's not going to go well. Don't be a stupid idiot. And everyone's like, yeah, watch out for that guy. That guy's got cameras. And he's armed. Stay away from that guy's place. And it's not being threatening, but it's just like, come on, and that's one thing I want to tell people too, because I get a lot of, I can't wait just to live out in the middle of nowhere, no one bugging me. I go, unless you've got a couple 100 acres, and even then, someone's probably going to wander on there and find your property because there's going to be roads. There's going to be motorcycle riders, kids, mountain bikers, hikers. It's impossible. Someone knows where you live. So don't think that you're just going to get this utopia of living out in the middle of nowhere and no one knows where you are, and plus that's dangerous. You get hurt. Who's going to find you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that people don't think of. I mean, we all have a tendency to think we're Superman. So, but I think that is something that people don't think about is you do need to be, especially when you're talking about buying remote pieces of property, especially as you climb in years, you do need to be near some sort of emergency medical care or even just medical care, period.
Or at least have a cell phone signal.
Yeah.
That's key, is making sure that on your property, where the dead zones are if you have any. That is essential. And plus I have to run a business. I can't not have some sort of internet access. And even with satellite internet, because I did use that for a little bit, is that doesn't work for security cameras for the wired in, because you have to have a hardwired router. The way the communication works, unless someone knows different, I researched it up and down. Satellite internet will not work.
So wait, why won't it work? Because I would think that those game cameras, maybe you could create a network between them, and then that could feed back to. I mean, I may be overcomplicating what's available or going beyond what's available. Okay.
Well, those work off cellular, so those are a different communication. So you can't just wire those into or try and run them through a satellite router or a satellite.
Okay, so you couldn't put a wireless. Basically a wireless repeater on a satellite connection to create your own wireless network across your property and then have the game cams feed into that?
No. I bet that you could do it if you were pretty technical savvy and actually worked in the industry and had access to all the parts you would need. But you're dealing with multiple communication systems, communicating all different ways.
And it's not. What I'm hearing is there's not an out of the box solution for that. Okay.
No. And like I said, I'm sure there might be some really sharp guy who's going to listen to this. Go, I got a solution. I'll show you, and it'll be a 50-page dissertation in a paper, white paper, telling me how to do it. But that's not what I want to do either. I got to be able to manage it. I don't do that I'm not an expert in it for as wiring all that stuff. You want it to be as reliable and simple and have as few failure points as you possibly can have. And that's part of the problem with the satellite internet is it's got a lag, and the way it communicates, and it drops out a lot. So even if you were able to set up something off the satellite internet's unreliable. It drops. And once it drops, the only way you can get it back up is you got to reboot it. Well, if you're not there, how are you going to reboot it?
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about these cameras is I've never had an issue. They just don't go down. They run all the time. And the battery life. I use the lithium batteries for cameras. I've had that one camera up for now almost 3 years, and I'm on the same set of batteries.
Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
I didn't expect that because I talk to Bushnell. I'm a geek. I mean, I call the companies. I go, hey, this is what I'm doing. Let me know. Will this work? They're all, yeah, you can do that with it, this and that. And I go, battery life. What am I going to get out of it? And they go, well, 6 months, maybe a year light use. They've been totally wrong. I've gotten almost 3 years out of the one. I'll replace them this year. After this 3 years, I'll definitely replace that one. But yeah, I mean, pretty awesome. It works very well. The only downside is the cameras are stupid expensive.
Oh, I bet.
The first one was $500.
Woo.
Yeah, they've come down. I think they're around $350, $400.
That's still pretty pricey. But
they're
I mean,
pricey. And not only that, but then you got to buy the security enclosure for them too, because you don't want to leave those out. You just don't want to, strap it to a tree and go, hey, here's my $500 camera. Come get it.
That would be hysterical. Somebody steals the security camera. Yeah.
Oh, they do it all the time.
I'm sure.
Up there. Oh, they're in the pawn shops, and all the tweakers go looking for them. Oh yeah.
God.
Oh yeah. You got to love people.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You're never getting away from the dumb human species. They're going to be somewhere. You just got to deal with it. You're just trying to get it away from large numbers of them. You're trying to reduce, the numbers you got to deal with.
Whittle it down to the most determined.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's they work really well, and Bushnell's been really good. Their customer service has been really good. Unless, like I said, someone writes me a note and tells me, hey, I got something else, which I always ask. I say, hey, if you got another solution, someone tell me, please. And actually, I did a survivalist workshop, and they brought in a security specialist. And I pulled him aside and said, hey, this is what I'm doing on my property. Is there any other solution? He goes, no, that would be the only one I could think of. I don't know if there is another one. I hope so. I would hope that someone would come up with something. But with that steel box, and I have resources in my book. I have 2 resources. I have one that was more local to my building. And then I have free resources, which I'll give the link at the end that you guys can go sign up for. And you get 2 free of my resources for my off the grid, how to go off the grid, and then the products that I recommend and companies I recommend.
So, and that brings up how, like we've mentioned it a couple of times, and your book is finally out. What's the best way for people to get their hands on this that are interested in either the topic or actually doing one of these off-grid projects?
It's called Going Off the Grid by Garry Collins. I should give you guys the title. We probably should have thought of that. It's easy to find. You can either get it on my website at primalpowermethod.com or Amazon, and it's in Kindle version. So it's easy to find. Like I said, just look up Going Off the Grid, Garry Collins. It should pop up, or go to my website. It's available there. I have a digital version that's a PDF on my website, and the hard copy is available as well. And I also have those free resources, which is primalpowermethod.com/off-grid resources.
What was that address again?
It's primalpowermethod.com/off-grid resources.
Awesome. Well, dude, as always, it's so much fun talking to you about this today, and I look forward to hearing more about your adventures as you get even further along with actually getting the house completely done.
Oh, that's years. That's to anyone who's done this, because like I said, I've met so many people now. We all giggle and laugh because people go, "When will it be done?" And everyone's answer is never. Because it's a continuing project. You're always working on something. You're putting in something new. You're putting in a new outbuilding. It never ends. But I document everything on YouTube. I'm pretty terrible at it. but I've been trying to get better because I get so busy. I forget to film stuff. And I got rid of my video camera and all the gear because I got sick of dealing with it. So now I only do things on my iPhone. So don't complain about the quality. All right. I had a couple people get all pissy and go, I can't hear. It's too windy. I'm all right. What do you expect? The wind blows.
You're recording on the side of a mountain. What do you want?
Yeah, I'm recording on the side of a mountain. Just that's what you get. Yeah, it's available. I hope they enjoy it. I look forward to the feedback. And I'll continue to document all the projects I do. I even did a thing on my utility trailer that I had to do some stuff to it and put some walls on it. And I said, hey, this is pretty much part of I use this thing every day. That's how I haul my materials up. So I did a video on that, on how I set up my utility trailer to haul my materials.
Oh, neat. Well, cool. Well, dude, as always, I mean, we talk in private on a somewhat regular basis, but as always, thank you for being on the show and sharing your great knowledge with us, and people should go check out your book.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And like I said, I just really hope people enjoy it because I've read some of the stuff out there, and I think mine might be pretty unique. I think I try to anyway.
Resources, links to Garry, and show notes from this episode can be found at intherabbithole.com/E206. Support the show. Go to itrh.net to find out about membership benefits like access to every episode ever produced by In the Rabbit Hole and more. This show is supported nearly entirely by listeners just like you. That's itrh.net. With that, we wrap up episode number 206 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.